Welcome to Sea Trials. Today we're going to be talking about the HMS King George, or King George V, or KGV for those of us who played Navy Field. Alright, so the KGV is one of the few ships that were developed by the British line as part of the Washington Treaty. Thus, it's a little bit wonky. And when I first looked at this, I went, I love the ship in Navy Field. I thought it was a great ship, but I was kind of concerned about how it was going to play in World of Warships. And lo and behold, I got my hands on it. I grinded from the Iron Duke up through the Queen Elizabeth into the KGV, and I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of my fears, my trepidation, my anxiety were laid to rest in that first game. The ship was just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why it's great. Let's talk about some of the downsides of it, and let's talk about how you can use this very effectively. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the upsides that the ship has, alright? So the first one we have to talk about is the armor, because this is the British. And the one thing you could always say about the British is they knew how to armor their canoes. And my god, look at this. 381 on the belt, 330 on the front mounting here. That's 229 on the side, the top at 152. Okay, the guns maybe not nearly as protected as they should be. Superstructure at 16, deck at 25, pretty standard, pretty normal. And yeah, what this inevitably does is it leads to kind of a difficulty hitting the Citadel, right? 381 for this tier will pretty much stop most shells from going through there. Mostly here, though, so you want to angle there. If they're at your broadside, though, it's really possible they can go through it. And the rear, again, 381. So this is definitely designed for angling. Direct broadsides, though, it can possibly pierce it. Now, you also notice it's 381. There's only one ship at this tier that has 381 guns, and that would be the Gneisenau. Technically, if you go a tier down, the Queen Elizabeth also has 381s as well, so yeah. But there's also higher caliber guns that are also in this tier too, so it's not going to be pretty much a guarantee of blocking those out. As long as you keep it at range, you should be relatively fine, but the closer they get, the more likely they're going to just punch right through this. So yes, that is one of the slight downsides to it, but the armor is virtually Citadel free. Not 100%, because I have Citadeled a KGV. I've done it quite a few times. I did it in a Queen Elizabeth, as a matter of fact. So you can Citadel these things. You can. It's not easy. Alright, so the next thing we really got to talk about, though, is the life pool. Now, if you look at every other battleship at Tier 7, they don't come anywhere near this life pool, with the exception of the Nagato. The Nagato actually has 5,000 more life than the KGV does. And that's something to consider. The Colorado is like 10k difference, actually 9k. The Gneisenau, similar. The Scharnhorst, also similar. So, yeah, having that high health pool is going to be really, really helpful. And actually plays to one of its greatest strengths, which is, of course, its repair. All right? So let's talk about the repair. So, regular repair for the ship does 302 HP per second, and the pool that it can repair from is quite big. And once you repair up to it, there's normally going to be another pool you could repair to, depending, right? And what I've discovered about this quite nicely is that this basically allows you to survive a lot longer than you probably should have. Getting Dreadnought with this ship is pretty much a guarantee in most cases. If you're like in the thick of battle and you can disengage quite effectively, then you should be getting Dreadnought most of the time, unless you're just completely, stomping the hell out of your opponent, and then, well, no need to. So you'll get the Dreadnought achievement with this ship quite easily, so that's definitely a plus of it. But again, 302 HP per second is actually better than any other repair for battleships at this tier, and even above. Like, I went and checked the North Carolina, I checked the Amagi. This kicks the crap out of it. Kicks the crap out of it. So, yeah, superior repair, plus the huge amount of life pool that you have. Obviously, not the biggest, but still enough to be relatively comparable. And throwing the repair on top of that just makes you one hard as hell to deal with battleship. All right. Now, let's talk about the guns. Now, this might be considered a negative here. Your guns are nowhere near as big as your counterparts, all right? The Americans have 406s, the Japanese have 410s, the Germans have 283 and 381 respectively. So yeah, your guns aren't nearly as good as everybody else in terms of armor-piercing punching power, okay? But what you lack in armor-piercing punching power, you make up for in two departments. Number one, high explosives. All right, so there's two things that are going for the high explosive shells in the KGV. One, you have a 41% chance to cause fire. 41%, guys. All right, that's akin to what the Iron Duke had. All right, when you go to the Queen Elizabeth, it actually drops down to 35, but you go back up to 41%. This means that depending on how well you are at aiming, it is very theoretically and actually very common to get multiple fires on one salvo. In fact, it's not uncommon to do 3 fires on a battleship at 15 kilometers. Yeah, true fact. And this can really wreck the hell out of your opponents. This is why a lot of people who play the KGV tend to just stick with HE as their go-to ammunition. It makes things simpler for them, though it's kind of underutilizing what the ship can possibly do, so I don't really advocate that too much. The second thing it has going for it is the penetration value of the HE. So the general methodology that you determine a penetration value for HE is you take whatever the shell caliber is and you divide by 6. And that tells you how much armor it's going to penetrate through before, boom, in theory. With the British line, however, it's divide by 4. So what this does is it goes from being 59.333 repeating to 89 total points of penetration. That's pretty amazing. All right, that's pretty amazing. And again, if you look at armor values here, that's going to pretty much guarantee damage on any of the squishy bits. Even if it's at an angle, you're more likely to get a penetration on it. So that's the other thing that gets you on there. You're most likely to get a penetration on it rather than breaking on impact, and that's pretty much a win either way. So yeah, that's more damage you're getting from the HE plus the fire chances. All in all, this thing is pretty much a HE spam cannon for all intents and purposes, but don't think that that's all it could do. Much in the same way the Scharnhorst operates, the AP is actually still effective. Even against battleships, you'll be hitting for like 9, 10, 13,000 damage within certain distance ranging. And against cruisers, you're pretty much just going to Shrek them back to hell. Now, little side note about the AP ammo, it actually has a short time delay fuse, so it's less likely to overpen its target. All right, you're still going to overpen the hell out of destroyers, but not nearly as often. I've actually noticed a greater amount of times of getting actual penetrations on destroyers, especially if they're coming directly onto me. But you're less likely to get AP or overpens, and that in turn means you're going to do more damage to your cruisers, light cruisers, and destroyers, and thus effectively become the British version of a Scharnhorst, just with way better defensive capabilities. Alright, so now we're going to talk about some of the negatives of the ship here. No, yeah, we're going to talk about the negatives. We're going to talk about the AA defense. Now, there's a lot of people out there who are talking about their builds and how they want to set this up, and a lot of them are talking about going with more of an AA-centric build when you get to the Tier 7 here. And what I have found in practice is this is not nearly as effective as they'd like to think it is. One, your guns are only going to go 2 kilometers, which pretty much means the only thing you're really dealing with is going to be dive bombers, right? And yeah, killing a bunch of dive bombers, that's cool and everything, but when most of the CV captains prefer to go more of a torp-centric lineup, your dive bombers kind of, well, suck. Yeah, you'll be really great dealing with those Graf Zeppelins who are still lurking around, but outside of that, no, not so much. Now, of course, if you take all of the, captain skills and bonuses and this, that, and the other, sure, you can get this number to like 3, or actually just under 3 and slightly over 3 for respectively on these to kind of gain value. This will just go up to like almost 6. And that's kind of cool, but when you look at the actual DPS numbers, 50, 24, 26, 119, I mean, like, seriously, like, this is the big one here, 119, and then, of course, you get down here in 65. I mean, it's not overly that good, but British AA is generally kind of focusing around the 40 millimeter mark is where they want to excel at, and truth be told, in comparison to some other ships, while this is slightly better, this still feels really, really weak. Also, little side note here, this Beaufort is slightly wrong. Actually, both of the Beauforts are slightly wrong in terms of how far they're supposed to be able to go. I do know for a fact that a Beaufort can hit stuff at 3.5 kilometers quite easily in combat situations. And I think the longest range shot they've ever done was a 4-kilometer shot. So saying here at 2.5 feels like a really big gimping. But again, this isn't a historical simulator. This is an arcade-based shooting game, so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. Moving on. Alright, so now we're going to go back into the positives here. Maneuverability. Maximum speed, 28. Yes, you can increase this with a flag. I think it gets up to like 29. Yeah. Actually, no, it gets up above 30. You have a turning radius of 7. Actually, no, it doesn't get above. Just shy of 30, actually. Turning radius of 790 meters. That's actually pretty tight for a battleship. Rudder shift time of 15 seconds. Yeah, if you need to wiggle, you can wiggle, guys. It's actually kind of nice. In comparison to some of the previous ones where it was like 20 plus seconds rudder shift time, it was annoying. It was really annoying. Now, some of you might not feel that this is enough maneuverability. Of course, you can always take any of the things that will help augment that, but really, you don't need to. The next thing that is kind of a bonus and will definitely be a really good perk later on is going to be your concealment. Now, completely blank, this has like a 14.6 concealment. With a camo on plus concealment expert, you could get this down to 12.2. Remember, you have a range of 18.1, plus with spotting planes, you can break over 20 kilometers. So, yeah, you can do some really interesting, surprise jack-in-the-box HE attacks on battleships at range in the beginning of the game, and almost guarantee getting yourself some value there. So, I definitely like it. Now, let's talk about some of the upgrades that we took for the ship, because this is a topic where there's a lot of commentary and differences of opinion, and what I kind of feel is like just kind of bad logic being applied here. Okay, so the first 3 of these are pretty much standard in everybody's build, and that's going to be the main armament modification, damage control system modification, and the damage control system modification too. This is universally agreed to be what you take 100% of the time. Where things differ is when you get to this slot here. And your 4 options are main battery modification. So basically increase your load time by 5%, but your traverse speed is also increased as well. So yeah, you're going to turn faster, but that just kind of seems bad. It doesn't seem very good. Next one up, you've got your AA gun modification too. This is the one that people are advocating you should be taking because, the extended range is going to make your AA a little better. Again, you're only going to extend it 40%, ladies and gentlemen. All right? That's not going to be a significant amount, as well as allowing for that increased amount to wipe out at 1 squadron of dive bombers. It really won't. And not at this tier. Maybe if they're like a tier 5 aircraft carrier, it might make some sense. But at tier 6 and 7, hell no. I mean, if you got a Saipan on the opposing team, you ain't doing shit to it. Not with your AA, even if you take this. So it kind of feels like a waste. Not to mention the fact that if you're going this route and you're investing the points on your commander into going it, and you're not up against CV, it's kind of hurting the rest of your team because your performance is definitely going to lack. And the reason I say that is because you're not going to have the aiming system modification, which makes your shots a little bit more accurate. It also gives more range to your secondaries, as well as reduces dispersion on the secondaries, which, again, kind of plays into a couple other ideas here. The main thing here is better accuracy with your main guns, which is a priority. how I view the ship is very much as a team supporter. Okay, you're not out there to be the biggest, slugger in the world. You're not going to be tanking a lot of shots, but you're working in Congress with your cruisers. You're working in Congress with your destroyers, right? It is the whole combined forces doctrine to winning a match. Sometimes this works beautifully. Other times, not so much. But those times are very few and far between. And if you play it in that regard of DDs take the lead, cruisers support the DDs, you support both the cruiser and the DD, and lay fire for friendly battleships on their targets when need be, then you're in a really good position. Remember, your guns do fire faster than most other battleships in your tier, and you're probably going to be able to play double duty with this quite effectively, especially if you've taken any damage and you're running, say, Adrenaline Rush. So for me, this makes a lot more sense into the style of play that I'm more accustomed to and feel is a much better winning strategy. Secondary battery modification, nobody gives a damn. Come on now. Nobody gives a damn. All right. Now let's talk about the actual captain build. Now, there's pretty much a standardized build that applies to most battleships of priority targeting, expert marksman, superintendent, and concealment expert. This is pretty much 100% what everybody takes. You look at Noster videos, 100% he takes this almost every single time. And there's a reason why. It's effective. It's a good build. All right, it works quite nicely on a lot of them. However, when I started playing on the Iron Duke, I quickly discovered that, wow, these turrets turn really slow. Would 0.7 degrees a second make a difference in this? And realistically, you could argue, yes, it would be like the difference between killing that DD who ran up alongside you versus him killing you with torpedoes. Okay, you could make that argument. But as I discovered playing the Iron Duke, I was never rushing into the battle. I was mostly playing as a kind of slow-moving artillery piece that did very well at keeping people at the intermediate distance. And that worked really good for me. Yeah, I was taking a lot of damage, and I started realizing, well, it'd be better here if I could shoot faster, reload faster. So Adrenaline Rush quickly took the place of Expert Marksman. Again, preferential choice on my part. You may not agree. That's perfectly fine. In the Tier 3 skill, of course, Superintendent makes sense, and, Concealment Expert always makes sense. Now, priority targeting. Because our ship can get some pretty decent stealth values, and later on, in the tier, we're going to have some pretty good stealth values. This makes a lot of sense for me. This is how I pretty much always do my setups for my Tagos and things of that nature in order to kind of play effectively the hit and run sort of raider strategy. Basically what the the Graf Spee and the Bismarck were supposed to technically be under German naval warfare doctrines. Why apply that doctrine to pretty much almost every single cruiser and fast battleship I possibly can, and it works kind of decent. So yeah, it makes perfect sense there. Now there are arguments to the expert loader. This is definitely one I'm probably going to revisit later on, and I probably will come back to expert marksman later, but I haven't decided yet. I do think survival expert is also one that should be looked into, just because, it plays to your strengths. But again, when we get a little bit further up, we may want to start looking at things such as basic fire training and the advanced fire training. The manual fire control for AA seems kind of pointless, to be perfectly honest with you, in comparison to these two, as it'll make life a little bit better. And for those of you who are sick and tired of just basically getting set on fire repeatedly, hey, you know what? You can always take this. It lowers that chance down even more. So stacking that on top of the module you already have will definitely make your life a little bit easier. As for the inertia fuse HE shells, that's kind of rough. That's really, really rough here. So if we do the math here, right? So you take 89, you take 30% of 89, which is basically 20. Hold on a second. About 23 on top of that. So now you're talking about HE penetrating at over 100. This effectively would mean that whatever angle a cruiser is at, you can pretty much always get in deep and possibly cause citadels at them. In theory. In theory, guys. Obviously, Russian ones don't abide by the rules because, you know, wargaming. But again, I have not tested this, so I cannot verify it, but it would be something interesting to possibly test out later on. But again, haven't tested it. But it is something that I do feel is kind of interesting. Alrighty, though. We've talked about builds. We've talked about how awesome the ship is. Now I think it's time that we actually see this in action. Alright, so as you can see, we're all nice and set up to go for this BA push. I don't know what it is. Every time my team decides they want to push A on this map, or I mean, we tend to win. And people who go C, and that's where they dive to heavily, it turns into a quagmire, and then anybody who went to A gets like A and B pretty quickly, and then you just get yourself in a flank situation, which just generally doesn't feel overly good. So I'm full happy to support this this push, and lo and behold, here comes the Sims. Oh, we love Sims. They're tasty, they're delectable. But really hard to hit at this range, so I'm getting lined up, and I just want to make sure that there's nothing coming up on us. Alright, so lining it up, and we just throw a salvo. We weren't expecting to do any damage with it. In general, at this range, battleship shooting at a DD, not the easiest thing in the world. We do get a hit. Awesome. Only for 1,000 damage with HE. Yeah, I know. It sucked. But still, we're supporting the rest of our team and maybe changing directionals of a DD because he's having to dodge our fire will expose him to a greater possibility of taking damage. So that's, again, following my combat doctrine. Alright, so we got the Scharnhorst here. We pop the spotting plane, and we fire a salvo. It was a little bit short, to be perfectly honest. We're gonna hit him, but not overly that great. Still learning the range angles using this, and also that plunging fire kind of, you know, messes with me just a little bit. But we do get a hit, no fire, so we're up to 3k. Personally, when using spotting plane, if I do like 3,000 damage, I feel like I've accomplished something. When I hit 10k, I feel like I am God. It doesn't happen often. Using spotting plane is a little bit wonky. Now we see him turning here, and I'm trying to readjust, and I'm overthinking this, you know, and that's always like the big thing when you're trying to aim at a ship using the spotting plane. If you overthink it, you're probably going to miss. And oh boy, do we miss. But not by much. We literally bracket his rear end. So a little bit of RNGs is there, and we could have actually hit him, and who knows, maybe even started a fire, a couple grand more damage. That would have been great. But, you know, we did not pray to RNGesus, so it is what it is. Now, I see him kind of turning, and I'm kind of trying to do a predictive shot where I could catch him right as he's turning into it. Yeah, I should not do that. It didn't work out too well. Alright, so predictive shot number 1 kind of failed there. We've got 14 seconds left on the spotting plane. At this point, I'm like, oh god, can we please be done with the spotting plane? I'm tired of it. And I'm looking around, and I'm looking for targets, and I see this Atlanta, and Atlanta is pretty good. And I automatically start going over to AP, but I'm going to put some HE on it first, and I fire it, and then immediately as I fire, he starts his turn. I hate when this happens, ladies and gentlemen. It is just soul crushing. And now he's turning back in, and he's under heavy fire here, so I'm probably not going to get a shot on him. So I'm setting it up. And I opt not to. Instead, I see this Iron Duke here. We're still on AP. So we fire off the salvo, and it's just pretty much fire and forget, right? Because, you know, that's how we're rolling. And we get 5 penetrations for 13,000 damage. And now I'm starting to go, okay, I'm feeling a lot better about myself. I can do anything. You know what? Let's shoot the front of a Scharnhorst. Yeah, that made total sense, right? The reality is here, I kind of rushed the shot. I should have waited because I knew he was going to turn, especially with that Nicholas right there. And it probably would have been a lot better. Not to mention the fact that the Nicholas had it well under control, so me shooting there was kind of pointless. Alright, so we're pushing in at A. There's call-outs to, you know, get to B, and we need to target these targets, and I'm like, yep, let's go. We got this. So as I'm starting to make my turn, I notice this Omaha is coming into range, and I'm thinking, ooh, Omaha, let's get a free kill. And we still got the AP loaded, and I'm looking, and I'm seeing him starting to turn here. And I'm going, wait, we have that plunging fire. Let's see if we can do some shenanigans here. So I'm kind of doing a little predictive shot here. I'm pretty sure he's going to keep turning. So we launch the shells, hoping to get some love here. And it's looking really good. And kaboom! Another 10K in the bucket. The Colorado is just outside of our range. I don't really feel comfortable chasing it, especially when there are an Iron Duke and a Graf Spree in the immediate area that need to be dealt with so we can actually take B. Always want to be supporting the rest of your team. Supporting a DD is very, very important. But I'm still arguing with myself on whether or not I should actually go for the Colorado. So at this point, I'm looking at the map. It's like, okay, well, we got the Duke over here. He looks like to be running. You know what? The Graf Spree sounds good. Now, I made a little bit of a mistake here. I have him locked on before my guns are in position. I don't ever advocate doing this. I really don't, because then it lets him know that somebody's aiming at him. But we already have a couple other ships over there, so I'm kind of hoping he's going to think it's just one of them and not actually me. At this point, I'm detected, so he knows I'm coming up. There's actually a DD in the area, so he's still focused on the Belfast that's to the side of him. And we launch out of a shot, and we're on HE there, and boom, look at that. We hit for 8,888 damage. Actually, that was AP that we hit him with. So, yeah, we just wrecked the hell out of him. And our team finishes them off. Again, playing to the team supporter. We're not meant to actually just completely wreck everything, though we can. We're meant to support the team to go for the victory, and we're doing a very good job of it right now. Fired at the Nuremberg. I was hoping that I could catch him kind of creeping forward. Did not work. I only got one shell. Very little damage. And we've got the Gallant coming up here. We've got our HE loaded. This is perfect. And we're setting up the angle. And we let loose our shells to some pretty devastating hits. Look at this. This is almost perfect. Crunch. We nuke his engine, take a good chunk of his life. He is not going to survive. We allow our team yet again to finish off something that we have crippled. This ship cripples a lot of stuff. It is so good. But in the process of going after the Gallant, I exposed myself to this Molotov. And again, fire is not our friend. And I'm looking, and it's like, okay, 30 seconds. If he causes another fire, that's going to be somewhat problematic. And then I'm starting to go the risk-reward of possibly using the damage control. So we line this up, and we fire, and I was like, oh yeah, we're still on HE. But it still did a significant chunk of damage to where he's going to just burn to death. He's going to get a little bit of assistance here. Boom. We're carrying on. Now, the Cleveland is coming around the corner. And I'm kind of looking at the Iron Duke. It's like, all right, let's get our guns positioned. And we see the Cleveland. We've got AP loaded. And we're going to try for some Citadel fun here. I've been noticing some of my shots have been kind of aiming a little bit low. And I'm kind of trying to aim for that midsection to kind of hit, you know, within the area. End up hitting a little high, to be perfectly honest with you. Don't hit the Citadel. But we still get almost 6,000 damage right there. And it takes a chunk. But the Cleveland's still in a lot of good health. He could actually cause some problems. Nuremberg still trying to kill me. Because we're playing around with our speed and direction quite a bit. He is just overshooting us. The Iron Duke is backing into a shot. And we're going to go ahead and take it. Try to get some more damage on him. Crunch. Yet another almost 7,000 damage right there. Iron Duke may have a lot of armor, but it still can take damage. And we're starting to line up on the Cleveland. He's doing this slow little poke out, and he's going to roll back. And I'm waiting for it to see the smoke change, and then we're going to do right there on that rear turret. The dispersion here was actually pretty horrible, ladies and gentlemen. We got two, but they were overpens, and that got us to Confederate right there. 61,000 hit Confederate. I think that's the earliest I've ever hit a Confederate, to be perfectly honest with you. Alright, so we're lining it up again. We're angling a bit. Not the best of angles there. We see the Cleveland. We're firing another shot. We're trying for that Citadel, and the dispersion's a lot better this time. We get 3 hits, one of which is a Citadel. Woohoo! And yeah, at this point, he is not in a position to really challenge us anymore. Now, we've got about 35 seconds until we can use our repair, so we're kind of slowing down. That Nuremberg's right there. I know he's got torpedoes. I know he wants to use it, but we're still going to kill him because that's what we do. Playing as a team, get a kill. Alright, so again, I'm not really wanting to kind of go too much, but we decided, it's like, okay, I don't see torpedoes, we should be fine. Yeah, that makes sense. Nope, here they come. So I'm like going, huh, great, here it comes. But no, apparently I was able to duck it because he fired them way, way off. And because we weren't moving as fast when he launched them, they just died right in front of us. So, woohoo! Alright, we're lining up on the Duke, and we're going to, again, hit him. And look at that dispersion right there, guys. That is a beautiful dispersion. Almost 11k there off 5 hits. That's awesome. Now, I'm kind of trying to hold the midpoint between the Cleveland and the Iron Duke here to see which one pokes his head out so I can get the kill. The Cleveland's just going to die here. And so we're setting up on the Duke, and I'm about ready to fire, but somebody takes the kill from me. Inhumanity of it all. So there's one ship left, and it is this Kamikaze R, and he is AFK, so we're pretty much just gonna wipe this up real quick and be done with it. And, you know, that's gonna be the game. We're gonna hit like 91,000. We had 43 total hits here in a second. Lots of damage. We just did an amazing job this game. So, that's the KGV, ladies and gentlemen. Strong support ship that's able to hold its own, wrecking cruisers, lighting battleships on fire, and just all around a great ship. Personally, I would say that this is the best tier 7 ship right now. Now again, opinion based, I'm biased, I love the ship, I think it's amazing. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Have you tried the ship? What do you think about it? What are some of your plans? And so on. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. And remember, till next time, stay safe, have fun. May our Jesus bless you.